Good evening and welcome to the first meeting of the Downtown Sarasota Condo Association of 2021. We're pleased that you joined us considering the constitutional crisis that's unfolding in our nation's capital. It sort of takes your breath away, and I know we all want to get back to watching that as soon as we can. We just, all hopes and prayers are that no one gets hurt. I'm going to ask everyone who is not on the board, except our speakers, to shut their video down and their audio as well. It's incredibly distracting when people who are not actually on the board are moving around and eating their dinner and taking phone calls and other things that are inevitable. So we certainly appreciate that. And when it comes time for questions, you can turn your video back on, turn your audio back on, wave your hand, and I will recognize you. Thanks very much. So let's get back to business. We'll start that by doing a roll call. Roger Barry. I see you waving. Peter Fanning.
Here.
Yes. Patrick Gannon.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Clark, Lauren.
Here.
David Lowe. There you are. John Moran will be joining us in a bit. Bob Parolo.
Yep, here.
Thank you. Ken Sheelan.
Here.
And Jamie Still.
Here.
So we are all here. Thank you all for that. We'll start with the secretary's report. Jamie, do you want to jump in here with the minutes?
Sure. Did everybody receive the minutes?
Yes.
Anybody have any issues, comments, concerns?
Move
Changes?
their approval.
Sounds good.
Second.
Sounds good. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, perfect. Clark, the treasurer's report, if you would.
Yeah, our available balance in our Sable Palm checking account is $15,619.16.
Thank you.
And I
Yes.
if I could, just to
Please.
add on a little bit to the financial report there, just to reporting back from a membership standpoint on the dues payment here. So of those condos that were due for renewal, most of them around the 1st of January, there were 36 of them, and 2/3 have paid already. So that's one of our strongest responses of having 2/3 paid by the anniversary date. So we only have 12 of the condominiums still unpaid. We'll hopefully follow up and get them all on board before the end of the month. And on our associates, we have just over half of those, about 57% of the associates have renewed. And we still have 10 of the platinums remaining to unpaid. So altogether, overall, about 62% paid to date so far by the target date. So hopefully we'll get most of that collected by the end of the month.
Thanks, Patrick. That's very encouraging. Any board members have any questions about the treasurer's report? Okay. Then we'll move on to new business, which is appropriately the appearance of newly minted Deputy City Manager Pat Robinson. Pat, thanks very, very much for being here. I know you're busy, and congratulations on your new position.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for your time, number one. And just for the record, it's interim Deputy City Manager. So the chief might still be stuck with me. We don't know how this is going to go in a couple weeks. So she's keeping my chair warm over there just in case it all goes sideways. But I can tell you, I'm thrilled to have a chance to talk with you guys and kind of learn what's important to your organization, because you are such a huge part of our downtown core and Sarasota City as a whole. So I'm here to discuss whatever you'd like. And if I don't have an answer, I will find someone that will have the answer for you.
Thank you, Pat. Like many of the people who are on this call, I've had the pleasure of working with you on many different issues in your former capacity, and it's always been a pleasure. So I was really pleased personally to see that you will be involved in the city, even though I know that there are those who weren't too hate to lose you. you'll get to talk. That's the chief. You survived your first city commission meeting on Monday. I don't see any outward scars.
Just emotional. Just emotional.
How do you feel that your history as a police officer, and also particularly as a police officer in a command position, will help you in your position as a leader of the city?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And I said a little bit about, number one, first, it was this whole experience thus far has been incredibly eye-opening for me. For those of you on the call that have been in local government and have been behind the scenes and really been involved with the development, implementation of the legislative side of this, over the last 2.5 weeks, I've had my eyes open to so many different processes, and you don't know what you don't know. And I can tell you that from my perspective, and in conversation with the interim city manager, he's got a great agenda, and I think he's got a lot of really good ideas and some things to make customer service a #1 priority to all of our citizens, kind of streamlining some of our processes moving forward to ensure that concerns are getting to the appropriate department. And that's not just the short term, but also the long term. Bringing some of the associated divisions under one roof to ensure that you will have a quote unquote one-stop shop if you have issues for our contractors and business persons for licensing. But to answer your question, I spent 21 years and 2 months in uniform at the SPD, which, just so invaluable to see what works and what doesn't work on so many different levels. And really where I think my strength is going to be drawn from in reference to this position, and Eileen, you spoke about it a little while ago, is I've had the opportunity, because of Chief Pepino, to be put in a position to develop relationships within our community that I'm going to be drawing on as I move forward in this position. But again, going back to it, I've seen a lot of crazy things in this town, and not just the fact that I worked at SPD, but I actually grew up in this community. I grew up just south of the city limit. For all of those that Demetrios, I literally grew up on the other side of 41 from Demetrios, and I spent a lot of time downtown when Hollywood 20 was started. I never got a civil citation for skateboarding. I just want to throw that out there on the record. But I've seen this town develop since my formative years in the 80s, and really seen when I could drive in the 90s and came downtown and went to the beach and went to Lido, and what it was and what it is and where it's going. I think that's invaluable to me in my position. But we were, and the city, the SPD continues to be the largest portion of the general fund budget. So I've had the opportunity to work with the chief on our budget, which is excellent experience for just the budgeting process here. Plus, I have to be honest with you, coming over to the city side of this, and we're going to be trying really hard to break down that wall between sort of the philosophical SPD city. They really are one thing. And being over here now, it's so evident that the SPD is such an integral part of our successes as a city, and the city is such an integral part of the SPD's success. And I think that hopefully in my position with my experience and relationships on both sides of this, I'll be able to bridge some of those misconceptions as we move forward in this in our governmental endeavors.
Before I open it to board questions, I'm going to selfishly ask you something that you and I had talked about, and that's code compliance. We talked about this a year ago when I was on the planning board, and then it became a big issue. You've now sat through the Selby hearings, or you sat through some of the Selby hearings. I don't think you had the pleasure of 18 to 20 hours of them, but and you saw the number of conditions that are put on different ordinances. You get this zoning change if you promise to do these 14 things. That's a type of code compliance that needs some looking at. And then I think your idea of code compliance need was a little bit different. Was it more things that were on the North Trail? Am I getting that correct? Or
well, I think that code compliance is a different issue no matter where you are geographically. The issue that is being addressed. At the PD, and and I won't take the chief's opinion away from her on this, but we deal with we were dealing with a very specific set of circumstances that we would ask code compliance to address. Now, being over on this side, it's a much deeper conversation related to code enforcement. And then get into the conversation about zoning text amendments and a lot of the different provisions that are getting added on to some of these projects. I think that it's, you know, I hate to say that my understanding of the code compliant process when I was across the street was much more, I will say, simplistic from where I was sitting, where it was like problem, solve problem, period. And I think it can get that way, but I think we need to take a look at how, number one, code compliance is staffed, the hours of operation that they're working, and ensure that they're really taking care of things that are really of concern to our constituents and really our bosses, which are the citizens.
If there's anything we can do to assist with that, please call on us. There's several of us who are interested in that issue. I'm going to open it up to the board now. Do members of the board have questions for Pat? Everyone's busy watching television, I think.
Hearing none, we'll move on to the chief.
Patrick.
Yes, sir. And Mr. Robinson, I appreciate the opportunities we've had in the past to work together, and I really look forward to your role here. And I especially like the opening where you said that under Mr. Brown's leadership, a stronger focus on customer service, and you mentioned something like one-stop shopping. And I think that's important for businesses and developers, but will there be a expansion of that to include the residents, and especially the 10,000 plus residents living in the downtown Sarasota neighborhood?
Absolutely.
So
One of the, oh, I'm sorry.
Specifically, I'm sorry, we have brought up the issue of gaining back a neighborhood services manager. There used to be somebody, a general manager, that's been gone. And transparency of services, of systems. So those are key issues that we'd like to have follow-ups and opportunities to really get into.
Absolutely. And Eileen, after the meeting, if we could just circle back at some point, just so I can make sure that I've got everything that needs to be followed up on, I'd appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I probably won't be able to read my handwriting later. So one of the things that you'll notice, and if you sat on the actual through the commission meeting, there's a lot of conversation about reduction in staffing or staffing hiring freezes and budget reduction over the next fiscal year. So keeping that in mind and trying to limit the size of government to ensure that our tax base remains stable. You know, one of the things, and the chief and I have had multiple conversations about technology being a force multiplier. One of the things that we're currently looking into is and I can't remember the name of it, and I apologize. Actually, my assistant Kathy popped in and said, "Are you going to be on the?" Oh, gosh, it's an acronym. But it's a web-based platform and application, and the chief has brought this up numerous times, where citizens will be able to see an issue, click on the issue, report the issue. So not have to go through email, not to have to go through, and it'll be directed to the right division to ensure that it's not only addressed, but then there's feedback provided. And Chief, I'm not going to steal your thunder on that, but I know that's the chief has been talking about that literally for 2 years. And I think in so much as that's concerned, technology really can be a win for us in that regard, because if we were to appropriate additional staffing to facilitate those things, not only do you have to hire the individual, but you also have the roll-up cost where, and I'm not saying that it's 100% because there's nothing that you can take away from having somebody actually physically there dealing with it, but at least for the reporting requirements or the reporting process on the front end to streamline that. So somebody doesn't have to wait for, 2 or 3 days for their concerns to work its way through the email chain to get to an individual. One of the things that I've been shocked about coming over here, again, what you don't know, I thought I got a lot of emails when I was at the police department. I can assure you that I wake up in the morning at about 4:30, I have a cup of coffee, I start my email routine then, and when I get home after my son goes to bed, he's 10, so he gets in there a little early, about 8 o'clock, and then I sit down again and go through emails from the afternoon that I didn't catch up with. So it is a lot of digital foot traffic. So if we can cut that down and really target that into an application that it just gets forwarded to the appropriate parties, I think that's going to streamline a lot of our customer service issues. And then the follow-up on the back end to ensure that it's getting taken care of.
That sounds like something that will cover many different topics. So
but Patrick, I will follow up on the general services manager for you and see where we're at with that.
There were a whole series of things that Eileen led us, the board, through a fairly lengthy strategic planning session this past fall. And from that developed a set of our committee goals for the organization with action plans. not dissimilar to how city staff do their annual planning and so forth. And what came out of that was a fairly comprehensive set of goals, actions, strategies, but many of those involved working with the city. And given the new administration here, it might be appropriate to find a way in the next few weeks to actually have some sort of meeting to review and align those. And I think out of that might come a little better appreciation for some of the issues that are arising more in the context of how we're trying to move things forward to better enhance the environment for our residents.
Absolutely.
Then I'll get back.
Yep.
I'll get back to you, Patrick, and we can try to, both Patricks, I should say. And we can try to set up some kind of a Zoom meeting with just a couple of people and see what we can help you and you can assist us as well.
Absolutely. Whatever I can do to assist.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? David Lowe.
Yeah, sorry, my name isn't coming up. I can't fix that.
You're coming
David
up
Lowe
as
here,
unlicensed room.
Nice
Yeah.
to meet you, sir.
Mr. Lowe, absolutely. I get your emails.
I'm in the Rosemary district, and one of the key wants and needs of our now 3,400 people is more trees. Developers, we've got numerous projects going on, and Mark Miller helped me put together a spreadsheet showing over 200 trees are going to be cut down associated with this new development. Now, granted, some trees get replanted, but oftentimes they're in courtyards or out of view. And one of the things I'm really happy about is Dan Ornstein is working on a new engineering design criteria manual chapter that addresses the issue of trees in the right of way. But as I've worked on an ad hoc basis on a couple of projects, I found that trees are really a complicated topic for citizens to get around because it involves the engineering department, planning, utilities, the arborist, and even parks and rec. And it seems to me from firsthand experience that nobody kind of owns trees, so as to speak. And I know because of the budget situation, it's unlikely that such a person or whatever could even be considered. But I would urge the city that there's got to be some glue between that so it's a little less fragmented, if you will. I know it's a complicated subject. The other thing is, if we are going to be more committed to trees and rights of way, we have to get the utilities folks on side. And I realize there are real issues and expensive issues at sometimes, but trees, if some utilities need to be relocated, that may be just the cost of living in a greener city. So I'd like to leave you with the message of, I think there's a real opportunity with Dan and this new criteria manual, but I would urge, I think, to your point of making things somewhat more efficient, that maybe it could be better defined as authority and responsibilities within your team. So I think everybody's well-meaning, but one key thing is the utilities folks respectfully have to be part of the team and have a degree of commitment to the trees, not as an annoyance, but as a part of a beautiful city. So
Right.
I'd appreciate your help on that. I think
Absolutely. And I think that I have been very, and again, I apologize in advance, but I never thought I would talk about trees as much as I have in the last couple of weeks. So I think to your point, I think you're correct. There are a lot of people discussing these programs. And I think that one of the conversations, because it generally is falling under Mr. Kober's umbrella at the moment, I believe, in planning. In my conversations as part of some of the urban forestry program and the canopy programs. And then Lucia has taken over from Tim Litchett, who Tim was kind of the tree guru. But I think as once Mr. Brown takes his, or as we always say in law enforcement, he gets his bars, and they make them full. I think that there are already plans going on to sort of streamline those programs to ensure that the appropriate amount of attention is being paid to these things. Because to your point, sir, if we're not paying attention to it, it's falling behind, and then somebody's going to forget about it and ends up being a cliff note in a different program, and then that's really not what we want to see happen.
Yeah, and from the money standpoint, I think there's something like $425,000 in the tree replacement fund, and it's just kind of gathering dust. So, and it can only be used to plant the trees. So, we're committed, this board and other boards, to working with the city as closely as we can without being annoying, but we'd like to be part of a team to get some more stuff done if we could.
Absolutely, sir.
Are there any other questions from the board? Any questions from any of the guests? Ted Wilson, unmute yourself, please. You're still muted.
There I am.
There
Okay.
you go.
Hi, Mr. Robertson, Ted Wilson.
Sir.
I live downtown in the Regency House. I'm also a member of the prep board. And my question is, the city, as you may know, has over 20 plus advisory boards. A few of them are locked in by ordinance or constitutional requirements, such as the planning board and so forth and so on. But and also realizing that the other advisory boards all have to be staffed by city employees of one form or another. In your streamlining program, are you planning on consolidating some of those boards, eliminating some of them, or what are your ideas on those advisory boards?
I believe during the latter portion of the commission meeting on the 4th, there was some discussion about an overall review by, I believe it was, the motion was made by the mayor at the time, to really start looking at that, because we do understand that there is we're also moving to 2 meetings a week. So we'll be doing a Monday, Tuesday, twice a month now. And I think there is some room to take a look at some of these boards and ensure that we are not duplicating efforts or triplicating efforts, and ensure that we actually have, because look, at the end of the day, and the chief and I were just talking about it, there are a lot of people that really want to be involved in things, and we don't want to waste people's time. So I think we are going to do a review of those advisory boards to ensure that they are meeting the criteria that need to be met, and that we're able to appropriate the right people to be on those boards, and that they're slated with the right department. So I do believe that is going to take place, sir.
Thank you, Ted. I am trolling through the photos that I can see. If anyone else has a question, please ask it now. Hearing none at this point, Pat, I want to thank you.
I think Jim's got one.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jim, I didn't see you. I'm sorry, go ahead. Unmute yourself, please.
Certainly. I just wish you well. I think you've got a great background, and Marlon has been sitting in second position for quite a while, and I hope and wish you much success working with Marlon and maybe improving the culture of the city. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thanks. Thank you, Jim. I've had the opportunity to have fantastic supervisors over the last few years. Obviously, you're going to get to hear from my longest serving supervisor, Chief DePino here. So I've been incredibly lucky to take the things that she's taught me about her management style and her leadership and what we've done with the police department. And I can tell you, from someone that spent, almost 13 years before the chief got there, the change in the organization that the chief has appropriated through her selection process, her driving force, her consistent managerial pressure and leadership is absolutely astounding. The things that the men and women of the police department are now doing that they should have been doing 10 years ago is nothing short of amazing. And I know there's always going to be room for improvement. And I know the chief would agree with me on that, but I can tell you that I'm still proud to be part of the organization. And I will continue to be involved through Chief DePino and the agency in our public safety. I'm going to have a more overreaching directive as far as public safety is concerned, with emergency management, technology, security, as well as working with the chief to ensure that her legacy, no matter how long she decides to stay, continues in the right direction. And I'm here to support her and the men and women of that organization. Yes, Jim.
Jim?
I'm glad you said that, Mr. Robinson, because what is astounding is we condo owners who live facing the bayfront, and I believe there are about 19 condo owners and several hundred petitioners, what's astounding is the constant ear-breaking noise from the souped-up cars and the constant speeding for the stretch that goes around Mound Street from Orange all the way across to Bird Key Park. And this is not an overnight thing. It's not a new thing. It's been going on since Bob Bartolotta was here, but it seems to be gotten worse. So there is a petition circulating. I'm sure you'll see it soon. I know the police chief reports to you and Marlin. So I hope that you would work with Chief DePino and actually giving real enforcement and not just warnings, because warnings aren't getting the message out. Thank you.
What did you write in your email, Jim? Although draconian, very effective. Yes. Is that right?
You got, yes, thank you.
Well, I can tell you this, without hesitation, that not only have we overtly discussed this numerous times, not only before I left the 2099 Adams, then came over to, gosh, what's the address here? 1565 First Street. I think I got that right. It is a constant point of conversation, and we are working on things, and I'll let the chief kind of describe her efforts on that because I don't want to steal her thunder. But we're not only working on the enforcement side, we're also working on the I don't want to say septet is the wrong word, but the designs and some of the signage and some of the issues that have been brought up by some of your members. And the chief has been tirelessly working on appropriating some of those ideas and enforcement strategies. So more to follow, and I'll let the chief follow up on that because again, I don't want to steal her thunder because she has put her and the traffic unit and her staff have put in a lot of effort on that. So more to follow, but it's not going away. We know about it.
Thank you, Pat. And Jim. Thank you again for spending some time. I know you're up to your eyeballs in trying to catch up with everything. So we really, really appreciate it. You're certainly welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting and enjoy all the fabulous discussion. But you probably want to get home and put your.
Oh no, trust me. I have a couple other meetings I've got to be at. So
oh, I'm so sorry.
No worries. But I would love to sit down with you in the small group that you talked about. If you'd like to sit down in person or do Zoom and kind of go over your goals and objectives, I would love to be part of that conversation. And anything that we can do to Mr. Gannon, I can't call you Patrick because it's just, I feel like I'm talking to myself. Mr. Gannon's ideas to ensure that we're facilitating what we can facilitate for our residents, because that's really what this is about.
Really appreciate that. And I will be in touch.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, Eileen. And if I might, I would love to introduce my former, or actually current boss. She's still my boss for hopefully, right now. And it is, she has provided me so many opportunities over the years to really grow in my leadership and really put me in a place to be able to take this opportunity. And it is I didn't take this lightly. And I know it is an operational impediment to the chief. And I feel terrible that I wish I could go back over and do some of her paperwork, but now I have plenty of my own, trust me, a lot of different paperwork that I have to really read. She has done so much for this community since she got here, and she has really taken the SPD and our public safety efforts in a fantastic direction. And like I said, as long as I am here, regardless of however long we are lucky enough to keep Chief DePino on property in Sarasota, I will ensure that the things that she taught me are moved forward within the organization and the city as a whole. So, boss.
That is a wonderful way to introduce.
So I will leave you. I will leave you in the grace and favor of the chief of police, and I'll go get working.
Thank you, Pat. Happy New Year.
Thank you, Pat.
Chief, we had set this up quite some time ago, and you disappeared. There you are. And you were going to give us a little bit of a wrap up of policing in Sarasota for the year 2020. Can you address that at least briefly, just to tell us, what you've faced and what's been going on?
Sure. 2020 was one of those unprecedented years. And by the way, Happy New Year to everybody. I hope you had a great holiday. It's great to see all of you. I can't wait until this vaccine becomes more widespread and everybody is able to get back together and see each other in person. I really miss that. That's the best part of my job. So Happy New Year to all of you. 2020 was unprecedented. It was one of those years that started off with very high expectations of initiatives that we wanted to put in place, training for our officers, a lot of goals that we had started off the year with, and it quickly turned to COVID-19, how to strategically deal with a workforce that potentially could lose up to 60 to 80% of its personnel at any given time due to the pandemic. Luckily, we never reached those levels because we put things in place right away to prevent that, to dealing with issues within the city that dealt with COVID, to wear a mask, not wear a mask. Things were constantly changing, to an event that happened over Memorial Day weekend, 1,600 miles away from us, with the death of George Floyd, which impacted law enforcement across the country, across actually the world, and dealing with issues related to that. 22 protests that were all luckily peaceful, didn't result in any arrests or any crimes taking place at all. To the end of the year, which the month of December, I was really happy that we were going to be gliding through the rest of 2020, only to find that the city manager was leaving, and Marlon Brown was going to be the interim city manager, and he was asking and taking my deputy chief to be the interim deputy city manager, which threw our agency into what they call in like Top Gun, a little bit of a tailspin, but luckily we've got good people within our organization, and we're able to right the ship really well and move forward. And that was our 2020. The good news about 2020 was the crime rate. We were able to reduce violent crime, the UCR numbers, as you know, Uniform Crime Report. We were able to reduce that crime by almost 10% this year, 9.7%. We still have a few outstanding reports to see if that's going to impact it, but at this point right now, 9.7% reduction. And I'm really proud to share with you, since I started as chief, we've been able to reduce UCR crime by over 50% in the last 8 years. And I'm really proud of the men and women of the Sarasota Police Department. I'm proud of the partnership within the community and within the city that all work together to do that, which ultimately led to the city of Sarasota being named the #1 best city to retire in the country, which is, I think, significant. Our 2021 goals are threefold. We're going to standardize our operations so that all of us are doing the same thing the same way. We're going to be planning a lot. We can anticipate things, plan for the worst, hope for the best, and then using technology to help us be more efficient and effective. This year, my motto, and if you ever visit the police station once things open up, is going to be pay attention. There'll be signs all around. Pay attention to what's going on internally with our own customers, our own staff, and pay attention externally. I want our officers to catch the traffic accident that destroyed some poles before Jim Lample sends me a picture in the morning saying, hey, this happened on Main Street. Did you guys see this? I want my officers to catch that before the community does. So I'm asking them to pay attention. And so that's our motto for the year. And we're also pushing out officer wellness and safety. Valentine's Day, there's going to be 3 areas that we're going to be targeting: physical health, mental health, and financial health for police officers. And we've got a number of things from peer counseling that we're going to be opening up to actually having a psychiatrist on staff, that we're going to make it. What I want to do is have our officers, besides having a physical every year, which is good, to have a mental evaluation every year where they go to a doc. It doesn't get reported to us. They just go to get a health checkup and make sure they're okay. And the only way that the doc would report stuff back to us is if they're homicidal or suicidal, which would be expected to report back to us. But we got a couple of hurdles before we do that. Money is one, getting union buy-in is the other. But I think we'll be able to do something hopefully with officer wellness and safety. And then we're implementing body cameras. And we actually hired an outstanding director for our body cameras program. He actually implemented and developed a program in Las Vegas, which is really a outstanding agency who really meets great standards. So by probably mid-year, before July, we'll have body cams for our officers. We're in the middle of impact bargaining. And then the last thing is I'm in the process of deciding on who the new deputy chief's going to be, and then I'll be able to promote a captain, a lieutenant, and sergeant within the organization. I am going to look internally. I'm not doing a nationwide search like I've done in the past. I think we've developed good people within our own organization. I think the only time you usually bring outside people in is if you feel like there's some some problems within the organization, and I'm proud of the captains we have here. And I think one of them will be more than capable of filling the shoes of deputy chief, and then that'll allow me to promote those other positions. And I'll be happy to talk to you more extensively. I know Pat explained to you, I've had this idea for years of having actually a portal that's a complaint portal where citizens can actually go in, and so can police officers and people that work here in the city can go into the portal and say, I saw, like Jim would send us an email, I saw damage to this property, and then it gets sent into the portal. It immediately goes to the appropriate person, whether it's Public Works or the police department, and then we get assigned that responsibility, and then we do something about it, and then we respond back that it's been completed on the date and time, and then Jim or whatever citizen that brought it to our attention would then get notification. So there's a clear letting people know that something was done, that we took your complaint seriously, we jumped on it, and it was completed on this date. I've been trying to push that for years, and it looks like it's we've got some movement on that. So I'm excited about that, and I'm willing to take any questions you have.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Please, Clark.
Chief, what sort of, you said that you had hired or are using some sort of director for the body cams. What sort of issues are involved with using the body cams?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Because we're going to start out with a little over 100 body cams. That's a lot of equipment in order to maintain. And there are a number of things that go into the body cam program: training, maintenance, making sure that the body cams are downloaded, public records request. There's a whole caveat of things. And but instead of talking about that now, what I would ask you to do is if you could be patient, because we're still working on the policy and impact bargaining and in other things. We're actually going to do a presentation on the April meeting of the Independent Police Advisory Panel. We're going to do a whole review of the entire program. We'll introduce the new program director for the police department, and they'll tell you what their job specifically is. And instead of talking a lot about it now, because it's very preliminary, we just got the cameras, we're working on the policy and all these other things. If you could go to the meeting or watch it in April, we'll answer all your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions from board members? I want to ask you about the homeless initiative that you talked about very briefly before. It was, can you describe it? And this is the most recent one where you were working with First Step.
Yes. What we have right now is First Step is partnering with law enforcement. They actually have an individual that if we have individuals in the city, which we do, they've identified 10 that are repeatedly utilizing police resources and also coastal resources, and those individuals are now going to be people from coastal are actually going to be working with them. They're going to be case managers, and they're going to be helping to get those individuals the help that they need. When I first started working with First Step and Coastal, which is now they're combined, my plan, my initiative, my thought was if we could actually have a crisis response team, be able to come out onto the streets, and when officers are dealing with people with mental health issues, that would be able to alleviate some of the need for police officers to engage with Baker Acts, Marchman Acts, other mental health issues, and you'd have an expert that could actually deal with the issue that's going on and help that person get the resources. So what ended up happening, because funding is a big issue with this, is they ended up having this preliminary where they identify in the county and the city individuals that are in need of mental health services and that are high users of those services, and that they could take them kind of like low lying fruit, get them into the help, and that would reduce the calls for service to their locations, and then expand the program from there. And once we have a few months of success, then maybe look at expanding it to the program I was telling you about, Eileen, which would be actually have people respond to the scene and help people get into the resources they need.
That sounds very promising, actually. And
it's exciting. It really is. It's very exciting.
At some point, would you come back and tell us how that is proceeding, if you don't mind?
I would love to.
Other questions? let me open it up to the guests. Do any of the guests have questions of the police chief? Well, I do have one. Are your police officers all vaccinated? At what point do they
No.
receive the vaccine?
Yeah, that's a good question. The governor's priorities, and I don't disagree with him, are to help people that are older, people at assisted living facilities, people that are more vulnerable, 65 and older, to allow them to get the vaccines first. Healthcare workers also, and but they have given some out to the firefighter, paramedics, and the police are somewhere a little bit lower on the list. And so we haven't gotten any indication. We have our officers prepared to get them when they are available. We're making it voluntary because we do the same thing for the hepatitis vaccine. Is if you want to take it, and you have to sign a waiver if you don't want to take it. I don't know why anybody wouldn't want to take it, but there are some people that don't take the flu shot. I get the flu shot every year. It's all personal. I think it's important to get the vaccine. I'll tell you, my daughter just recently got the vaccine. I'm very grateful. She's a police officer up north, and she got the Pfizer vaccine. And she said the only thing she had was some pain in her arm, which is, I get that same thing when I get a flu shot. So there's some other people I know that got it. They felt a little bit of the effects like you would getting a cold, a little bit of chills, maybe a little bit of headache, but not for long, very minor. And Tylenol and ibuprofen seemed to work for them. So I think getting it is the right thing to do, and I encourage people to get it. I don't know when we're in line to get it, but as soon as we do, we'll get our officers over there to get it.
Great, great. Now, before I let the chief go, are there any other questions? Dick Rivera.
Question, Chief. I'm just curious about your objectives for the year, or how you think about the homeless situation in Sarasota and what your department is doing about it, and how you coordinate with the county to deal with it. Thank you.
Okay, well, the city and the county are two total different entities, and the county actually mirrored our homeless outreach team program, which we were very glad to see that they did that, because it's quite an effective program. We've actually been able to reduce homelessness in the last 5 years by I believe it's over 60%, and we're going to continue doing that. What we do is we partner with, we have civilian workers that go out with our police officers, and they go out and encourage people. We have the 3 E's, encourage, educate, and enforce. So we go educate people about what resources are available. We encourage them to get into the resources, and then we enforce the laws when they violate the laws. Last year, we got a little bit of a setback with the enforcement side. Local ordinances, we were able to arrest in the past, but a judge, I believe, misinterpreted a case law and made it that we couldn't arrest people for local ordinances. It was based on something else. And so what we've done is through the Florida chiefs and through some attorneys that we know, we've actually appealed the case, and it's in the appeal process right now. Hopefully they'll overturn that and allow us to be able to make arrests on local ordinances, which really helps facilitate getting the homeless into the court system, because we have actually a community care court where the judge is really knowledgeable and educated about the homeless, what we do with the homeless, and that we document our contacts with them. And then if a person goes to the court with one of these violations, then they are able to say, you're either going to go to jail or you're going to go into one of these programs. And it gives them a little bit of a thumb to put over top of the person because they have a crime, and then the person may not want to go to jail for the crime. So we got a little bit of a setback with that, but we're going to continue our efforts. It's working. It's successful. I think most of the people that if they listen to me will, I just want you to know, first of all, we're never going to end homelessness. No matter, there's no magic solution. There's always going to be homeless people. Our job is going to be to do everything we can to get them to stop being homeless, and then get them into the resources that they need. But we can reduce homelessness, and all of you can help us with that. If you would pass this word along, is to stop feeding, giving money, handing out blankets, mattresses, mats, enabling the homeless, because there are people that are handing out $100 bills to homeless, and they're just using it on drugs, alcohol, and prostitution. And it's actually a horrible story to share with you. There was a guy sitting on Main Street. I was walking, foot patrol myself, just to stop and talking to community members. And I saw him. I'm like, hey, buddy, can we help you? Is there something we can do to get you off the street? He's like, oh, no, I don't need your help. I'm like, come on, please, we can get you resources. And all of a sudden, right behind me where he was sitting is the liquor establishment. A couple people walk out while I'm standing there in uniform and hand him a bunch of single bottles of alcohol. And I looked at them and said, what, please, why are you doing this? This man doesn't need you giving him alcohol. We're trying to get him help to get him off the streets. And they're like, oh, well, we used to be alcoholics. We know how bad it is. I said, literally, you're killing him. And guess what? 1 week later, he died. And we tried over and over again to try to get him help. So enabling is the big thing. If we could stop people from giving food, I promise you, there is not a hungry homeless person. Salvation Army and churches feed homeless people all the time. And it really helps us to get them to get into the resources and the services they need. And we believe in helping one person at a time. And we do this with heart. This isn't with callousness. We care about the homeless. We know that they're in that situation for a reason, and we're going to continue to do that. And we're working successfully. We actually were recognized by the Human and Civil Rights Organization of the ICP for our efforts in dealing with the homeless, and people model our program all over the country. It's been so successful.
Thank you
Right,
very
thank you.
much for that. If there aren't any other questions, we're going to let the chief go as well. I'm sure she's had a
Thank
busy
you.
day too.
I appreciate it very much. Thank you all for listening. I will tell you, don't speed in the Bayfront or over the bridge, because my officers are out there. They've been told tickets, no warnings, get out there. Write people for that. We're trying to slow people down. We're also looking at getting signboards and some other creative things. I actually am getting more laser. It's you guys all think of it as radar. It's not. It's lasers are more effective than radar. Radar is like a broadband. It sends out a signal and captures everybody on the road. The laser actually signals out specific vehicles, and it helps us get successful prosecution. We have 33 of them in the department. We were actually going to train officers last year, but COVID hindered that. We're getting them trained this year. So you'll be seeing more and more enforcement out there, and we'll do everything we can to try to keep people safe and educate, because that's important to keep educating people. So thank you guys all very much. Hopefully to see you out in the future. Take care. Be safe.
Happy New Year. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Bye-bye.
We'll move on now with the agenda. This is really a very simple thing, discussion of a letter to Governor DeSantis. I'm the one who put that on there. It's a really simple request for the Board of Directors to approve my writing a letter on our behalf to the governor and the city commission, of course, stating that we're in favor of allowing advisory board members to meet remotely via Zoom or other similar means. The reason they can't all meet remotely now is because the Sunshine Law has been interpreted to require a physical quorum. For example, the planning board, which has 5 members, would require 3 of the members to be present physically, whether or not they felt at risk by doing that. The planning board meetings, which are the ones I'm quoting because I'm the most familiar with it, and Patrick is on the board, they go on for hours and hours and hours. And last month's planning board meeting was cut short because none of the 3 older members wanted to be present in chambers for more than a couple of hours, which I certainly can't blame them for feeling that way. Of course, intrepid Patrick Gannon volunteered to appear for 2 hours for one of the issues, but 2 of the other issues had to be postponed. So it's really not fair to the developers. It's not fair to anyone in the case of the planning board. And that's only one of the advisory boards. The reason this request has to go to the governor is because he has the power to override the Sunshine Law by executive order during emergency situations, and can suspend that physical quorum requirement as he did at the beginning of the pandemic. And it worked perfectly well. Everybody functioned fine and everybody is healthy. And I really don't see any reason why he can't do it again. Commissioner Ahern Koch had reached out to the governor's office on December 9th, on this issue, but has not heard back. Really, I don't think there's any reason I can think of for any board members, they're all volunteers, to risk their health to accomplish something that can be done with no risk at all. You have to remember they allow people in the chambers without masks. All they have to do is say they have a pre-existing condition. But should a board member himself or herself have a pre-existing condition, such as being in a high-risk group because of age, that is not taken into consideration. And I just think that that's not right. And I would like to get your opinion on that.
I think it's a wonderful idea.
I'm sorry, Bob, would you say that again?
I think it's a wonderful idea.
Thank
I'm sort of even wondering, we're going to have our members meeting via Zoom this month. And I don't know what the state requirements are for condominiums. If we could do 100% Zoom meeting for the annual members meeting.
You don't come under the sunshine law. The condo doesn't come under sunshine.
There's certain requirements, I think.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Anyway, I think it's a good idea.
All right. Other folks, John, please.
100% behind this.
Can you speak up a little bit? You're very, very low.
I see I'm not muted. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Very slightly. Go ahead.
This affects the Downtown Improvement District, which is a governing board, not an advisory board, but they put us in the same category.
Right.
It requires, as stated, a quorum has to meet, or the meeting has to be canceled.
Mm-hmm.
The problem for the advisory boards is we cannot then meet remotely by Zoom. We must do it by telephone. Talk about an awkward meeting where we have, for instance, the last meeting, we had, yes, sufficient people who were brave enough to double mask and appear in the commission chamber to conduct the last DID board meeting. I participated by phone, and it was very awkward because, yes, I could turn on my computer, I could watch the meeting, but I could only hear or speak by telephone, not by Zoom. So a very ineffective way to conduct a meeting. It worked great, as you stated, when we're able to conduct remotely by Zoom, that is advisory board meetings. It worked just great. But now this hybrid that they're forcing us to, they will not permit advisory boards to do the hybrid version that the planning board and the city commission does, because it's too expensive to do a hybrid Zoom and in person. So yeah, this is something that really bugs me in particular. So I wholeheartedly support this letter.
Thank you, John. Anyone else like to jump in? David?
Yeah, Eileen, would you, I'm all for this. Would you like to make a motion and just if you draft the letter and if you wanted to circulate it for comments possibly, or I just soon you just be empowered to write it. And as a lawyer and with your experience in journalism, I think you'd be very great at it. So that.
Well, thank you for your confidence. I will make the motion. I will pass the non-existent gavel and make a motion to have the Dsca board approve the writing of a letter for the reasons that I've just stated. Do I have a second?
Second.
Bob, thank you. Then all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. I appreciate that. And we will now move on as we are trying to get through quite a lengthy agenda, I might add. Roger, you wanted to propose the addition of a new member to the board.
Yes, thank you.
Do take that, please.
Okay. Well, and as a preface, we back in 2017, we had 15 members on the board, and we lost 8 through attrition of various sorts. And we have been lucky to gain a couple of really talented new ones, one the chair, David and others. And I've had the opportunity to work with Alan Friedman for the last year in the Transportation Committee, and attached, of course, is Alan's resume. And so I would like to make a motion that we appoint Alan a director of the Dsca board.
I'd just like to say you all received, Alan, can you turn your video on? I see you down there. There you are. I circulated Alan's resume and also his what he's been involved in since he's been here, which is just exemplary. So Patrick, you had a question?
Yeah, point of order, you have a motion on the table, no second.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're so correct. Thank you, Ken. Now for discussion. So I spoke with Alan earlier today, and he's here with us, and I wonder if anybody has any questions. You have read his experienced in public relations, and anyone who can represent the Orange and Rockland Electric Utility is really someone who can take it on the chin. So I lived up there at one point. So if no one has any questions, let's move forward with a vote. Roger, I take it as a yes. Peter?
Yes.
Patrick Gannon?
Yes.
Clark? Lauren?
Yes.
David Lowe?
Yes.
John Moran?
Yes.
Bob Perollo?
Yes.
Ken Sheelan?
Yes.
And Jamie Still?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you and welcome. You are now a member of the board. So please leave your video on. We will never let you escape.
Can I just say thank you to the board and to Roger for nominating me. I really do look forward to working with you and hope I can make a contribution to what you're trying to accomplish.
We are counting on that. In fact, we'll make sure of it. So thank you, Alan, for actually being willing and able to add so much to this group. As part of this particular moment, it's been suggested that we actually create a nominating committee for the future because we will be wanting to entice people to join the board. Does anybody wish to speak to that?
I'd like to speak in favor of it. I did a little homework, and we've lost members for the regular kinds of reasons, but we've been slow to re-add. And so we had 15 3 years ago. We were down to 10, now to 11. We have some potential retirements that have been hinted. And so I think preparing with a nominating committee for if a modest expansion or for sure replacements when necessary, I believe would be a good thing to do.
Thank you. Shall I consider that a motion?
Yes.
John, you have your hand up. Do you,
Just
wait,
gonna
a
add-
second. Thank you, Patrick. John.
I was just going to add that I had experience as one of the original members of the Downtown Sarasota Alliance, that we had a nominating committee. And there was a couple of trusted individuals. And when they brought back a glowing recommendation, very little discussion was involved, and that seemed to work. So having had experience of one, I support that we also do likewise.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak to the motion? Peter?
Will this nominating committee be restricted to only nominating board members, or will they have expanded duties at times of the annual meeting when we need to nominate officers and so forth?
Well, that's a good question. Let me turn to John and Roger, who seem to have a lot of experience at this with this organization. Roger, I see you shaking your head.
Well, I'm sorry, I hadn't thought of that. That's why I'm shaking my head. The idea of nominating officers, it would be a logical process. Peter, could you explain a little more about what you would have in mind?
Well, I was thinking that each year we have to look at not only approving board members at the annual meeting, but often we have to approve the slate of officers as well. And it would seem like a simple addition to include that as part of the task, understanding that it's a special event either way. So I would think I think it would be a good idea. I didn't want to propose it because it hadn't been discussed in any way as yet.
Any other discussion on enlarging the nominating committee to take on that additional task? Roger, you made the original motion. Would you include that as part of your motion?
Yes, I'll be glad to, and I think I would need a second to see if that's going to work.
Patrick, was that you, I believe, who seconded?
Yes, that would be good to include that. Although I would say, yes, I second the addition to include the officers as well as nominating directors.
Okay. Thank you. Any further discussion on that from the board? Because this will be a board decision. So let's move forward with just the board at this point. Shall we, Patrick, point of order. Is this a board decision or is this a president decision to set up a committee?
The president can form any committee of the board. So really the bylaws give the president the ability to form committees and appoint people. So you have the board saying they would like to have this. If you take a vote on it, and you can then set it up and appoint people to that.
Well, this president likes to get the board's opinion on everything because that's how I think it ought to be. So let's just run down. I'm going to call your names again, and I'm taking names. Roger Berry, on the motion, yes. Peter Fanning.
Yes.
Patrick Gannon.
Yes.
Clark Lauren.
Yes.
David Lowe.
Yes.
John Moran.
Yes.
Bob Parolo.
Yes.
Lynn Sheelan.
Yes.
Jamie Still.
Yes.
Alan Friedman.
Yes.
Then you will all be getting an email from me begging you to serve on the nominating committee. And I will show up at your door if you don't volunteer. Thank you for that. Patrick, would you handle the review of the city neighborhood grant application?
Yes, so when we put forward the preliminary budget for the year, we realized that there was a significant amount of communications we need to do, as well as upgrades to our websites for coordinating this. As we began this past year working with Pro It Out Marketing, they've stepped in and are handling many of our regular activities of organizing and meetings and newsletters, and now working with our committees, especially the Associates Events Committee that Jamie Still is heading up. But through that, we recognize that there's still a lot of inefficiencies in coordinating information across our websites and how we can better respond. Clearly, we found this past year that when situations occur like it did with the whole COVID pandemic, our ability and need to supply information rapidly out to our members was tested quite a bit, and we put in a lot of effort to do that, but we can't expend that amount of effort going forward. So we need to upgrade the systems around that. And so the suggestion here is that we put together a proposal. I've already begun the details of that using essentially the proposal that we did, I think it was about 5 years ago, Peter, that created the existing website that we have on our WordPress site today. And so it's been a little over 5 years since that grant from the city was done, and we did that upgrade. And so the idea was that we put this forward. Given the timing here, we weren't able to get it drafted in time to present to the board. But what I'd like to propose is that myself and whoever, and Eileen and whoever would work with us on drafting this grant request, and then we can send it around to the board for review and comments, and then to be submission. The final date for submission is on Monday, January 25th. So my proposal was to have a draft to submit to the board no later than the 20th for review and comments. That gives us at least 3 days, for 3 or 4 days for board comments, make edits, and then have a submission by the 25th. So that is the suggested at this point. I don't have a firm motion until I get some feedback on this. Enough suggestions to move forward on this.
Does anybody have any questions about the grant? Or does anybody, let me start it this way. Does anyone have any opposition to our applying for this grant? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay. Is that sufficient for you, Patrick? And
yes,
we'll just start working on it.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Who is handling, I think it might be you again, or is it Jamie, the new Platinum Associate members?
Well, from a membership standpoint, I will put forward here the motion that we've had a number of new companies join the organization here in the last few months. And I think we have one of them here today, but those are Angius and Terry, Aqua Plumbing, CIT Banking, and Forge Engineering. Those are the 3 new members that have joined. We are working through upgrades right now. We have Professional Plumbing that has been a member, and they're upgrading. So that's really the board approving organizations joining us as members is what's required in our bylaws, that it's the board approves members. And so that's what the list is. And in addition, we have one new Silver Associate member. So
You want to make that motion?
I'll make a motion then that the board approve these 4 new Platinum members and 1 new Silver as new associate organizations.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jamie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you very much. Now we've finished new business. We're on to old business, and I'm going to turn to Bob Parolo, who has kindly, out of the goodness of his heart, taken over the survey committee, and he's been working hard at that. Bob?
Yes, I have a meeting scheduled Friday with Sheila Connell and Ted Wilson here at Broadway. And what we're going to do is we're going to lay out a sheet of, you know, what kind of information do we want to collect? We want to try to make it pertinent. We can, you know, always fill out a spreadsheet with a lot of different questions, but they may be questions that nobody really is. It could be interesting, but it also could muddy it up a little bit. So we want to be pertinent. We want to look at best practices, management styles, vendors, maintenance fees, things like that. I did a little one not too long ago, and I put in, you know, the dollar per square foot sale, which frankly, the price variance in any condo can be significant. And I'm not sure that that would be useful information. So those are the kinds of things we want to sit down and talk about. And since Sheila has done this, I'll be interested to see what her process was before and see what we can contribute to that. I think we also would like to add to the survey new technologies. You know, something not quite so new, you know, like electric car charging stations. We had a question on our forum about that. Wi-Fi. You know, there's quite a bit. I think it's going to be pretty interesting, and I hope we can make it really interesting for all of our members. That it would be useful information.
And Bob, who else is on your committee? Do you have anybody else committed to
I
the?
have Ted Wilson.
Okay.
And he's confirmed, so he'll be here Friday morning also with Sheila.
All right. Wonderful. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you, Ted, for doing that. Does anybody have any questions regarding the survey for Bob or any additions? If you have suggestions, I would encourage you to contact Bob and send them there. Patrick?
Yeah, I was going to ask Jamie or Kristen whether they know of any associate members to participate, maybe of a platinum associate, since we do have questions about how this might be used, if that was appropriate.
You mean besides putting their logos on there, you mean?
Well, yeah, in terms of if there's other background issues that they're aware of that need to be included in that survey. Things
we can reach out at the meeting.
Okay.
Okay, great. Anything else on the survey? Thank you, Bob. Really appreciate you taking that on. Now, Patrick and Clark, reviewing and/or approving the 2021 budget.
We're going to move that to the next meeting.
Okay.
As we were going through all the invoicing, we realized again that we had a lot of updating to get done to really propose and capture the full accounting of what our actuals were, what we have remaining, and what income we expect this year. So I wanted to update that a little more carefully. So we'll bring that back at the February meeting.
Okay, terrific. Now we're going to run through the committee status reports. The first one is Jamie with the Associate and Events Committee.
Yeah, so I have a couple things this time around.
Want to do city update?
I think John Moran goes first.
You forgot John Moran.
We can't possibly forget John Moran.
He snuck in there.
So sorry, John. I jumped right over that despite it's always being there. Please go ahead and update us on the DID.
Unmute yourself, John.
You're muted.
Yes, I have nothing to report. The latest DID board actions have been sort of inside the beltway type stuff that I see no application for enhancing the downtown experience. Such as, for instance, we are going to request a modification to the DID ordinance such that we limit the directors who are active merchants to a quantity of 2, given they have short-term focus on their business, whereas the majority by far of the DID taxpayers are real estate investors with long-term goals. That's such a narrow set of considerations that I don't want to board this board with that, but that's the nature, the type of thing that's been going on for the last month or two. So other than that, the only thing to add is we have an individual who inspects the outages of the tree lights in downtown Sarasota during the weekend. And I'm happy to report that she's been saying the restaurants inside and outside are full. So that's good news for downtown business. Plus, I'm glad to hear that. Not for me until I have a vaccine to go inside or outside of a downtown restaurant, but glad to see that some souls are taking the risk and enjoying themselves. So that's a little side comment on on the activities that are going on in the retail-centric portions of downtown.
Thank you. Roger, did you have a question?
Yeah, John, would you comment on the storefront program?
Yes, the did budgeted $200,000 on a storefront and sidewalk cafe grant program, maximum $5,000 per grantee. So I have received 14 applications so far. Committed expenditures a little over $60,000 of the $200,000. So if for some reason you find yourself in a shop or a restaurant, you might help communicate this opportunity and say, hey, do you know there's a storefront or sidewalk cafe grant program available to any ground floor business in the downtown improvement district? I'm surprised because I've seen it in the Sarasota Observer. I've seen it in SRQ Daily, and I'm surprised how few people are aware of this opportunity to improve the storefront with awnings, stucco work, glass, tables, chairs, umbrellas, heaters, up to $5,000. So we have 14 applicants so far, and I understand there's probably at least that ready to come into my inbox. But again, it's an effort of the DID to polish the patina, so to speak, in downtown Sarasota, and hopefully just continue to make it an attraction with the combination of the flower baskets, the tree lights, the storefront improvements, the sidewalk cafe improvements. Just another addition to, again, enhance the downtown experience.
Thank you, John. Any other questions for John? All right, Jamie, now we come to you. Thank you for catching that.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so one of the things I wanted to discuss with the group was the Platinum members have been having some difficulty being able to speak due to the fact that they're kind of pushed at the end of the meeting. And unfortunately, a lot of people have left by the time they have a chance to speak. And I know that we're not here to directly serve them, but at the same time, they are donating or, you know, paying, or they're a large portion of our budget. So what I would like to do is, we have an idea, our committee came up with an idea to kind of rectify the situation where the Platinum members would send me new information every month. So it's not the same old stuff being repeated every month. And I would approve it. It's a 60-second opportunity to speak, and that we would intersperse them throughout the meeting. I think this would be a good way for them to be able to have a chance to speak and also not, you know, bog down the meeting by having them maybe go all at once in the beginning or the end. So I don't know if anybody had any thoughts on that, but I think that's a pretty good compromise to help them out. And like I said, it's going to be no more than 60 seconds, just like we've already agreed upon. And they do have to come up with new information. So can't be the same old stuff.
And we also talked about the possibility of a 30-second video or something like that, that we could intersperse, as long as it was good.
Yeah, and I do really think this is unfortunately something that happened because of COVID and the Zoom meetings, because before we had people staying around because there was a wine social at the end. So it really wasn't as big of an issue, but with Zoom, it's a little bit more difficult. So I think it's really more of a compromise for 2021 as opposed to a long-term situation. So
it is. Any questions about that? Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Alan? What, you're muted.
How many Platinum members are there?
Usually there's no more room than 20. There's 20 spots. Right now, 10 have renewed. And generally speaking, probably, if I had to take a guess, 4 or 5 speak at each meeting.
Okay, because my question was simply whether or not we would want to limit the number who could speak.
Yes.
I'm in favor of the idea that you designed. But if you had all 10, then you're getting into, you know, speaking in one meeting, it'd be somewhat excessive. So
Yeah,
maybe
we just
want to think about limiting the number at any given meeting.
It's not a bad idea. Usually, yeah, I don't think we've ever, in the whole time I've been here, I don't think we've had any more than, I definitely don't think I've ever remembered 10 people speaking, even at the end of the meetings when they were in person. Generally, it's probably about 4 or 5 people. And that's just a rough estimate. It could be more than that, but
we're hoping to encourage them to say more than "I'm John Smith from John Smith Incorporated," and we're great people, so make sure you give us a call, because that's what we get, with the exception of the bug lady, who is always entertaining and absolutely gets what marketing is about.
Yes.
So we're hoping to kind of bring them into the future, into the present, not the future, a little bit. Anything else for Jamie?
Yes, I actually do have a request from the board. So we do have on our Google Docs some dates laid out for our events for the year. So I'm going to give you guys the dates, and hopefully everybody's okay with that. And then I did want to, the one that I really want to kind of lock down and have approval for tonight is we're proposing a webinar on March 24th, another webinar on June 16th, and fingers crossed, a live event October 13th. In order to put on any kind of event, we do need about a couple months leeway. The first one would be your approval on a topic. And then the next month we'll have a flyer put together, a panel of speakers, and then we would need approval for the flyer. And the flyer does need to go out at least 30 days prior to the event. So I have some topics and I have some ideas. And if you guys have any ideas on which one you would like to, at least if I could lock down March 24th, that would be ideal. One of the topics we had talked about was association insurance rate hikes. How bad is it? And creative financing solutions. That was our proposal for March, but it could be something else of the other topics. June 16th, we had board member authority, expiration of emergency powers. October 13th, we had a choice of 2 different topics. One is annual meetings, voting, and discrimination, or recent Florida condominium lawsuits, how to keep your association out of court. So those are some topic ideas. So if you guys have, if we're okay to move forward with the March 4th one, which would be the association insurance rate hikes, how bad is it, and creative financing solutions. I would like to, if you guys are okay with that, I'd like to put forward a motion to approve, starting to put that together.
Any questions? Any comments? Any suggestions? I will take that as approval, except for Patrick.
Well, that's fine. So I think what you're talking about planning here is one of the platinum sponsored webinars, correct, Jamie?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
and this would be, you're proposing that separate from the DSCA's annual member meeting, right? So we
correct.
Would do a separate annual member meeting. Okay.
Correct.
So at the same time, we do need an events planned for a member meeting. And was any consideration given to dates for when we would do that?
No, when we usually do it in March, correct?
Well, the bylaws call for March or any date. Now, last year we had scheduled it for April 1st. So that was the first, that was our normal board meeting. And so we went ahead with for that. So that would be the only question, is whether we're still trying to get that in, before the end of the year. So would we do that the following week, say on the 30th or something? So anyway, I just think we should have a target date for that, because we need to start working on that. And that ties into what the nominating committee would be coming up with. And there's all sorts of timing for sending out the slate of officer, or the slate of board directors, et cetera. And we probably don't want too much conflicting emails going out, so a little more time around that. So I would ask that maybe the events would look at that and come back with suggestion.
Okay, don't we usually do that with the board meeting? Could it be April 7th? This is kind of what I'm looking, because April 7th is the first Wednesday of April of this year.
When we were doing it face to face, we only had an organizing board meeting. We did not do it as part of our normal board meeting because the normal board meeting is 2 hours long, and then we would have that. But since it's more, you know, we certainly could, but it does lengthen given the backup of things we have here. But the other reason for doing the kind of webinar or the meeting, you know, with members approaching was so that you have people attending the member meeting who also are there for the informational portion prior to our actual function, or we do the functional meeting first, and then the informational webinar or workshop or whatever we were doing at the time. So that's the only reason for considering that was an opportunity for multiple people. But given that it's both being done online, that may not be as tough a consideration.
Okay.
But I'd leave it to Eileen right now as far as the combination of the two, whether you want to try and just do an extended meeting and do the, you know, have cut down on what we would be doing for this normal board items or not have any committee reports, things like that. So we could do it on the April, you said 6th or 7th?
The April 7th is the first Wednesday of April.
So.
Well, I would say personally, I would like to do it on a meeting date rather than have an additional meeting, but we could, instead of having guests, for instance, guest speakers, we can make the meeting shorter. What does, other thoughts? No one? Any other thoughts on that? Preferences? You've done this for 20 years, so you know better than I do.
A comment, it would be that doing this on Zoom is not as exciting as having cocktails and so something shorter and yeah, I would push for something shorter, efficient, and then we can all adjourn and have our cocktail at home. I don't know. Yes.
That sounds like a plan to me. Anyone else have a thought on that? Well, then if no one else does, why don't we try for April 7th and try to do it all at once?
That's for the annual board meeting, but we're still okay for March 24th for the Platinum Members webinar to recap.
Yeah, that would be separate.
Okay. Okay.
But be sure that's the annual members meeting and then followed by the board meeting.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
This is,
Yes, Peter.
this is an unusual year, so I think as long as we're cognizant of suspending the requirements in our bylaws for this meeting, I think we can probably go to April 7th, even though we say we must have a meeting in March in the bylaws to elect officers and so forth. I don't even think you need to. I think maybe an executive order by the president because of unusual circumstances that we're in.
I'll try to write up an executive order. I'll see if I can get
the White House. just to be aware of somebody, if some nerd wants to make an issue out of it.
But I think they're having a busy day.
Yeah.
I mean, we could make the annual members meeting the March board meeting, so that would be what, March 3rd.
March 3rd. Yep.
And do the annual members meeting as part of that.
That's fine.
Yeah, and then if you don't have the meeting in January, you have to give 60 days notice for the meeting that's going to happen in March. I mean, it doesn't make any difference. I think you just suspend the bylaws this year in some respect to the annual meeting.
Peter, do we need
do whatever you want?
Do we need a vote to suspend the bylaws for this?
Yeah, you probably do. But you know what? It's so highly unusual. It's so highly unusual that the board would allow you to do this by fiat to not adhere to the bylaws that I think the board probably by unanimous consent could just say, Eileen, issue the executive ordering to do this. That would be my opinion.
Does anybody object?
No.
And that is that we will do it in April in order to have sufficient time for notification, which is really the most important thing. Does that sound all right, Peter?
Wait a minute.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. You were saying in the last 5 years, I don't know that we've done board meeting announcements 60 days in advance.
I know we have, because I've made it an issue at least 2 of those years.
Okay.
Yeah, that's important. Notification is always important. So let's stick with that. Does April sound all right for everyone? Put it on your calendar. It'll be a highlight.
Yes.
I guess, Jamie, if you're done at this point.
One more item, and it's just that the Platinum Associate members will have their meeting on January 22nd at 1 o'clock via Zoom. That's it. That's all for me.
Thank you. You've been really busy. Patrick, the Green Space Committee, anything there?
No report this month.
Thank you. Peter, the Homeless Committee.
No report this month.
Okay. Health and Safety Committee, I'm going to turn it over to David Lowe, who is our COVID chaser.
Thank you. I
Or something
just
like that.
be
Sorry.
laid off from that job. But I have Patrick, have you got my information? I guess I didn't talk to you about being able to screen share that. Sorry.
No.
Okay.
No, I don't have that.
Okay. I circulated, sorry about that. It's my fault, Patrick. I circulated to, not you, Alan, but the rest of the board members, some COVID charts from yesterday, a couple hours ago. I don't know who's been able to look at those. The trends are not particularly good. In fact, there was a day-on-day change in the city of a 9% increase. And if those of you who have looked at it, you see some really divergence between our different zip codes. 34236, the greater downtown area, is trending down, whereas 34234, the northern part of the city, is kind of doing the opposite. And this is somewhat newer phenomena, and you know, the county-wide numbers, and I'm rambling here, are at an all-time high. You know, they peaked in midsummer in the 1,500 range, and now we're at 21 or whatever 200. So things are not particularly good. These charts I'm sharing daily with Marlon and John Legge, and I understand they're being circulated amongst senior staff in the city. I'm disappointed personally that there aren't more initiatives to encourage mask wearing and build public awareness, but every appearance is given. And I watched the city commission meeting Monday night, and there's relatively little conversation about it. So it's kind of put one's head in the sand and hope you know, the vaccinations come. I've tried for 5 days in a row to get an appointment for a vaccination, and my lottery number hasn't come up. So you know, you just sit there at 3:30 and, you know, and watch the spinning ball or whatever. But I'd be happy to try and answer any questions, but the charts kind of I'm using the same data source since April. So now we've got, I don't know, what is it, 10 months or something like that of trend lines. Yes, Ken?
I spent the last half hour before the meeting started waiting in the queue for an appointment and failed. Anyway, I've been sharing some of the numbers by zip code with my condo co-owners, and I got a reaction from a physician who's on the staff at Sarasota Memorial, and he said, your numbers don't match the hospital's numbers. Where do our numbers come from? The health department or where?
Yes, the county health department issues them. In fact, as we've been on this call, the numbers for today come out, and I've used exclusively the same source from April.
Yeah, well, I know it's tough to compare 2 different sets of numbers. They never match.
Yeah, and then, you know, it is confusing as heck. You know, you've got these different, the Rebecca, whatever her name was, the lady that got fired from do it. You got this certain Johns Hopkins has numbers. But these are the official numbers for the county of Sarasota, as I am told.
That's what I told him.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions for David?
And I guess the one question is this too much information for you folks? Do you want me to circulate?
Yes, we would like it to be happier, please.
Okay.
Would you please make it happier next month? Thank
Okay,
you.
so and Alan, I'll add you and anybody else that would like.
Thank you.
If you get an appointment, don't loud it over the rest of us. So
Right.
Roger and the Transportation Committee.
Okay. The city is going to consider at the end of this month, the commission evidently or early next month, the proposal called the Ringling Trail, bicycle trail. And so since this meeting had already been scheduled and was pretty busy, we held a meeting of the Transportation Committee to review the city's proposal, the proposed Ringling Trail. And then we held a meeting on November 30th with the Transportation Committee and invited board members. And we had three board members also attended. And Dan Ornstein, as the assistant traffic engineer, presented the plan to the committee. And just to a brief summary of what it is, it's to connect the Legacy Trail, currently under construction with downtown Sarasota, using Ringling Boulevard from between Shopping and School Streets west to Pineapple in downtown Sarasota. It's about a mile in length on Ringling, the street. The Legacy Trail currently has 350,000 bicycle users trips a year, and with the construction of the trail through Sarasota to that point, actually will end at Fruitville, past Ringling. They're expecting 500,000 bicycles a year. This, with the ability of people to bicycle safely downtown, should provide quite a boost to downtown, as well as being a benefit to the residents who are interested in bicycling, particularly in a safe environment, I being one of them. It's proposed to have a, I'm searching for the word, a sheltered path in which you are sheltered from the traffic on the street. And it's dedicated to bicycles and at one way in both directions. And so we've been asked if we are interested as an organization in endorsing the Ringling Trail and communicating that endorsement to the City Commission. I personally am very much in favor of that and am willing to make a motion for it. Well, let me back up. The Transportation Committee made a motion recommending, I believe the word was enthusiastic endorsement of this project to the board. So with that, I will make a motion that we communicate with the City Commission that we support the Ringling Bike Trail. And if we get a second, we can discuss and then vote.
Second.
Thank you, Ken. Discussion, questions?
Does the motion imply, because of the conversation, that this will be an enthusiastic endorsement?
Depends on who writes the letter, I suppose.
I guess.
I was hoping that the Transportation Committee would write the letter and I'll sign it. How's that sound?
And then there will probably be an enthusiastic endorsement.
I was going to say, use a lot of exclamation points. That should do it.
Yes, that was my contribution, the word enthusiastic.
Is there, should we, yes, Ken?
I have a question of Roger. Do you know when and if it's going to be an agenda item for the city commission?
I was told it would be the last meeting in January, but it could slip into February.
Because
Yeah.
what we could do is go and read that letter during that discussion, that agenda item.
I would be happy to do that.
That was the reason they were pushing. They had asked to come here and do a full presentation, but we just couldn't fit them in. And so Roger's committee took that over, and thank you for doing that. They were concerned that we support it if we were going to before it appeared at the city commission. Is there anybody who's opposed to it? Let's do it this way. All right, then Roger, would you pen a letter with, use a very enthusiastic color stationery and a lot of exclamation points, and we'll send it. We'll make sure it gets in.
I'll put big words in it. Okay.
Well, no, it's going to the city commission, maybe not. Sorry. Now let's see, did I miss? Oh, now, sadly, the zoning committee is next, and Mel Sykes has decided to resign, as you all know. Excuse me. He's involved in quite a few things, and he wants to concentrate on a couple of other things. He's been really, as a member of the zoning committee, I have to say, really diligent and just done a terrific job. So I'm very, very sad about this. And it's a good committee, though we haven't met in quite a while. There hasn't been anything that's been really pressing. But we are looking for a new person to chair the zoning committee. And so please keep that in your mind. I don't think there's anything to report other than the fact that we would like someone who is interested in zoning and might actually be willing to chair that. So any questions about the zoning committee or anything further? Bob Parolo, Bay Park Conservancy.
Yes, a couple things. The Bay Park Conservancy had Friends of the Bay. They had a fundraising project that was going to be matched by some association. And they were looking for 1,000 members to contribute. And happy to say they reached over 1,000 people to contribute before the end of 2020. Also, the Bay Park Conservancy, I mentioned this before, Amazon Smile has a program where when you shop on Amazon, they will make a contribution to the Bay Park Conservancy if you set that up in your profile, your Amazon profile. And I would hope we would all do that. I've done it. And as I think I said, I think I've contributed $5.37 or something now to the Bay Park Conservancy through Amazon Smile. And the other thing is the parking lot in front of the, between Boulevard of the Arts and 10th Street, in front of the Municipal Auditorium has been repaved, restriped, and they've included a 10-foot wide pedestrian bike trail through it. And it looks very nice. They just completed it, I believe, last week. And that's about all I have.
Thank you. Any questions for Bob? All right. Ted Wilson, CCNA. Is Ted still here? Yeah, there he is. Ted? You're muted. Yeah.
Hi, there I am.
Thank you.
Again, the CCNA meeting is this coming Saturday, so there's really nothing to report that hasn't been already discussed from the chief and from Pat Robertson and what's going on. So I don't have anything.
All right. Thank you. The Rosemary District Association, David Lowe.
Yeah, well, the big news here, folks, that I think you're aware of is we're in the midst of a fundraising campaign. We've got that $120,000 to find to the gap money, so as to speak. We've got another 9 days to get it. I am happy to say that we are probably with pledged and in the bank amounts, we're probably almost to $100,000. That's kind of the good news. The challenging news is this cutoff, we need it by the 15th, and John Legge tells me he would like he's required to have a cashier's check by a week from tomorrow.
Oh.
So I am dialing for dollars. We have had a quite robust social media outreach. Mariah Talaferro's done some YouTube stuff, and we are really beating the bushes. We have 2 campaigns going, what we call a smaller donor campaign up to $250 is possible at the Rosemary District Association.org website. And then I drew the short straw, and I'm the large donor czar, and trying to get some of those folks. So we've had, a lot of awareness. We painted a fence green. I think you may have seen me send around. We're doing everything we can, but we're still about 20 grand short. I have reached out to 3 foundations in particular, and no cigar yet there with those folks, but we're working night and day to get that final 20,000. I'm happy to say Tom Barwin bicycled by today and dropped off a check from he and his wife. So that was a nice touch. The other thing is we're having a community meeting of the Rosemary District Association on the 13th at 5:30. It'll be via Zoom. And Marlon is our guest speaker, with Commissioner Batty also invited to say a few remarks. So that's two key things in the Rosemary. That's about all I've got. Thanks.
Thank you, David. We are now, I'm going to turn this over to Kristen. Are you here, Kristen? There you are. We are at the end of our agenda, and now we have a moment to hear from those who support us financially.
Perfect. Thank you, Eileen. Thank you to the Dsca for inviting us in so that we can promote our businesses as well as your agenda. It's always interesting to hear what's going on downtown. We will start with our first up alphabetically. We have Alex Turner with Associate Gulf Coast.
Hey there, Happy New Year, everyone. Again, I'm Alex with Associate Gulf Coast, and I just want to let you guys know, in addition to being an association management company, we also specialize in board education. So if your association has a particular topic that we can help educate your board and your members, we're happy to come do a seminar for you. In addition to that, I am a certified board certification teacher. So if you have annual meetings coming up, and if your board needs to be certified individually or as a group, I'm happy to do that for you as well. And lastly, just a lot of the COVID talk tonight. Please check out associateonline.com. We have an expansive library of COVID management documents. There's ebooks, webinars, a ton of great information to help boards during this time in managing. So appreciate the time tonight, and thanks so much. And I hope that was coming into the current. I'm trying to catch up with Dee.
Thank you, Alex.
Alex, those classes can be offered over Zoom, I'm assuming?
Absolutely, yeah, we'll do them Zoom, in person, whatever everyone's comfortable with. Also, one other just quick point, and I'll get off. For those who are coming out and are enjoying social activities, the first Thursday of every month, we're hosting SAIL, which is Sarasota Association Industry Leaders, at the Sarasota Yacht Club from 5 to 7. It's a little bit of education, a little bit of fun. So certainly give me a call if you're interested. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. And that SAIL meeting is complimentary to board members and managers.
Kristen,
next up. Oh, sorry.
Alex. I have a question for Alex. Alex, I'm not familiar with board certification. What is that?
Sure. So at Chapter 718, all condo board members are required to be certified. There's a course that you each need to take, and it's a state certified course. There's the lawyers, all the association attorneys can give it. I know Kristen, through her her company offers them. And again, privately as through Associate, I can offer them as well to you, to any association.
Thanks. I don't think we've been doing that.
Oh, Ken, let's get going.
Right, the statute says if you become a board member in the state of Florida within 90 days, you can get your certification through one of those educational courses, or you can waive that. And but you do need to certify that you have read your condo docs, and that's for HOAs too.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Alex. I am next up. I am Kristen Forey with Core Marketing Solutions. I represent a portfolio of clients. I've been with the DSCA now for, I think I'm going into my 4th year, which is crazy. It doesn't feel like that long. But some of my clients are actually platinum members. So I'm trying to also keep current. Alex, like you said, did you know, I have a fun fact about plumbing. Did you know that pipelining was actually invented in London in 1971? Many pipelining companies might tell you that you have to break up your floors or your walls to replace your pipes, but pipelining will avoid demolition. Professional plumbing is a 24-hour full-service plumber as well as your pipelining specialist, and they are upgrading to platinum at the DSCA this year. Another fact, going into my second client, is CBiz Insurance. The leading cause of the insurance rate hikes this year is due to reinsurance. Reinsurance is coverage insurance companies buy to help them pay claims, and it makes up a significant portion of customers' premiums. And this year, the reinsurance prices jumped because of a shift in the market. Now, CBiz can help your association navigate through these rate hikes and get you the best bang for your buck, because you might be losing some of your coverage because of the rate hikes. My next client that is also a platinum member is Right Way Emergency Services. There are 4 steps to assess a disaster. You want to get your emergency contact, inspection, response, and recovery. And Right Way can respond to your water, fire, or mold disaster and inspect the damage and get you on the road to recovery fast. I also represent Norton and Hammersley and Rufuside West. They are, Norton Hammersley is a silver member. And I have a new client, Forge Engineering. They are on the Zoom today, so we want to welcome our new members, platinum members, Forge Engineering, Michael York and Pete Rossi. Do you guys want to pipe in and tell us a little bit about Forge?
Yes, good evening, everybody, and thank you for having us. Thank you for the introduction.
Oh no.
Are new. I think yesterday actually. So thank you for the quick turnaround. We've heard a lot about your association.
Michael, you're fading in and out.
In there. All right. Oops. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
That's better.
Thank you. Well, we just want to say that we're happy to be here. We are a forensic engineering firm. We handle anything from new construction to forensic engineering, specing, bidding, and overseeing jobs, just condominiums and commercials you guys live in and operate in every day. Guys in the Sarasota market. Anything. Thank you for having us.
We couldn't really hear you. I just wanted to voice that they've Forge Engineering has been in business since 1966, been around a long time. They can handle all of your building envelope marine forensics. They specialize in that, environmental needs. They do have local offices in Sarasota. What's great about Forge is instead of getting to your situation a week, 2 weeks, 8 weeks from now, they can address your issue within hours, not weeks, which is kind of the going rate these days with some of these engineering firms. And last but not least, we have Tannenbaum Scrow Construction Defect Firm, I believe. James, there he is.
Hey. Hi, Happy New Year. Jim Toll here from the law firm of Tannenbaum Scrow, Lamole, and Kleinberg. And we are a construction law firm. And tomorrow at 11 a.m., we're going to have a Zoom educational program. Michelle from our office is going to, I think, put a post on the Dsca website so that you can see the link if you want to sign up, or if that doesn't happen, you can call her at our main number, which is 316-0111. And the topic of it is going to be maintenance projects. Maintaining the common elements of a condominium is the primary, or one of the primary responsibilities of an association and the board. And so it will be kind of an interactive program with 3 attorneys. I'm not one of the attorneys on the program, but and you'll be able to ask questions, but it will be about those responsibilities, the planning and contracting of the projects with the design professionals, and ultimately the contracting of those projects with the contractors. So again, once again, everyone, Happy New Year. And if you're interested in that, just look on the Dsca website or give our firm a call tomorrow morning. It's 11 o'clock tomorrow morning is the Zoom program.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jim. And just to follow up with that, another thank you to the DSCA for adding that to the Platinum member benefits, where we can post educational events. So please make sure and go to the website and check out the events calendar for the associate members, and you can see what's going on with various educational presentations in town. And that's it.
Thank you, Kristen. At this point, I'm going to ask if anyone other than board members and board members as well have any questions or comments they'd like to make. Your comment is probably, I'd like to get back to the TV news at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Peter Lynn, I'm sorry.
Hi, yes, sorry. I do have one question. In one of the prior meetings, there was talk about maybe a collective initiative by the DSCA to seek ways to bring down the insurance costs, which is, significantly higher, as stated earlier. And I wanted to know if there's any follow-up to that, or is there any status update?
I can, the individual who was a board member of one of the condominiums was talking about setting up a captive insurance company. There was some question about whether or not that was legal, and he went to the State Department of Insurance Regulation, which told him it was. So, and he has provided us with the letter. So what we're probably going to do is, if we do the webinar on insurance, and that he may be included in that in order to discuss, he has some expertise in that area. He isn't just an individual who just decided he'd like to start a captive insurance company. So he may be included in that, but we're still looking into that.
Okay. That sounds promising. Thank you.
I'm not sure if that's correct. We had 2 insurance companies there on that meeting say that it wasn't. We looked it up, and I believe it is legal for co-ops, but not condos.
Kristen, can I forward to you that letter and you could share it with those individuals who would know? Because I would really like to know that. I will share that with you. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
I reviewed the letter, and for transparency, I'm not an attorney. I did get looking at it and looking at both statutes. And I think if we were going to get involved in this, we would need to get a legal opinion, because what the statute really says is that this captive insurance is an alternative to self-insurance. A condominium association may self-insure if they want. That's not the same as creating a collective association as an alternative. So that was a fuzzy letter as I read it. So I'd be careful in pursuing this without further advice.
Oh, Peter, as an attorney, I wouldn't do anything without an attorney's opinion.
Can I just add, Eileen, that on the 27th at the Sarasota Yacht Club, we are having an insurance seminar, and we're going to be talking about this. So if any of you would like to join us, registration is still open. And that is, you can contact me. I don't know how you can, I don't know if you go to Patrick or actually we'll just post it on the website. How about that?
That sounds good. Or if anybody wants to reach Kristen, they can reach me through Dsca and I will pass it on. And as for the captive insurance company idea, my opinion is that Dsca does not need to get involved in this. It's just an idea of someone who had, who is looking into something. So I think that that's a bottomless pit to get involved in. So I'm not pushing that in any way, but he is looking into it and I'd like to know the answers to the questions. So I will send that to you, Kristen. Thank you very much. Anything further, Patrick?
Yeah, I would just mention that on the DSCA's membership portal, our Wild Apricot membership portal, we have a members only forum where topics such as this can be posted and discussed among members. And so we've been encouraging, if members simply want to have that discussion about what they do, DSCA can facilitate that dialogue, even if we do not initiate and run a program ourselves, but to the extent that that helps members at least discover the information and get the facts out.
Yeah, that's a very good point. We are trying to educate people about using that so that they can speak to each other without waiting for a monthly meeting. Is there anything else? In that case, I think that we'll adjourn this meeting and wish everybody a happy, healthy 2021.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.